Alright, Steve, I hope you're hungry because it's time to talk about Snack World The Dungeon Crawl Gold for Nintendo Switch, which you've been playing for a little while. So just a little backstory for this game. This has never come out in the West until now, but it was prior to this a 3DS game. And then it was brought to the Switch in Japan last year as the Gold Edition, and now we're finally getting it in the West. There's an anime, there's a manga, they're going hard on Snack World apparently. And it's done by Level-5, you may know for Professor Layton and Fantasy Life and a bunch of other games. But that doesn't matter. All that matters right now is, Steve, how are you enjoying this game?
It is, it's alright. Like, I don't want to come off too hard on it. I'm still very early on in the game. We're only allowed to talk about the first 3 chapters, so that's really all I've played. And I don't know how many there are because, like you said, John, this game's never come out in the West, and it kind of flew under my radar. I didn't even know that this was a pre-existing franchise until a few minutes ago. So, I'm enjoying what I'm playing, but not enough to really give it like a solid recommendation yet, is where I'd say. I still need to give it some more time before I can really say where I land on this. But so far, it's just kind of middling for me.
Interesting. There's been a pretty positive fan following in the West since this came out in Japan. So I think a lot of fans see this as like a Fantasy Life spiritual successor, and they want it to be that. And I know that you love Fantasy Life. So just to say to those fans, is this what it is, or is this something entirely different?
It is something entirely different. I definitely understand why people get that vibe, though. The art style, and what you see in trailers, like people running around, and the combat system does feel very Fantasy Life-ish, or it looks Fantasy Life-ish, but does not feel that way in practice. It's a totally different kind of game. You don't really have a choice as to what you're going to do in the Snack World. You are an adventurer, and that's all it is. You don't have choices. The most choice you get is what weapons you take with you into battle. So if you're looking for more of that kind of explore and play at your own pace kind of vibe that Fantasy Life gives, kind of that mix of Animal Crossing meets Zelda, that is not here at all. Which is unfortunate because it is a really cute game. The art style kind of gives you a Fantasy Life vibe. The UI, the combat system, all feel very familiar if you're into Fantasy Life, but this game could not be more different other than that. This is a purely an action game through and through, or like a very light role-playing game. If you're like me and you were really into Fantasy Life, this will not scratch that itch. I can tell you that much right now.
There's something about the subtitle, the Dungeon Crawl, which makes this game seem like it's in a very packed genre. There's so many dungeon crawlers out there. What would you say makes Snack World distinct from other dungeon crawlers and roguelikes and just other games like this?
It does have like an absurd sense of humor to it. And this is not a game that you can take seriously by any stretch of the imagination. All the characters are kind of goofy. There's a lot of fourth wall breaking, self-referential humor. Like when you go in, one of the earliest things that you see in the game is like the king is talking about how a hero, you, is found passed out outside the palace gates, and he's like, oh, well, this is pretty standard stuff for an RPG. Go ahead and send him to the hospital. and so it has a lot of moments like that where, they're not even trying really. Like they're like, yeah, this is a game. There's moments where NPCs reference stuff that is just, they reference the game's mechanics, and other characters will tell them like, hey, you're not supposed to say that to the player directly. Or someone will refer to something as a tutorial and then correct themselves and call it a quest. So there's a lot of that, but also mechanically you have to decide on your loadout before you go into a mission. So each mission is like a self-contained quest. Like you have to decide to go on a quest and launch it from a menu, and then you're in that quest. There's no you don't travel between locations. There's no open world to walk through. You literally hit a button and say start the quest, and then you're transported to wherever that quest takes place. And you play through it, and at the end, you're transported back to town. Even if there's a second part to that quest, you have to pick that second part from a menu. So it very much feels as though this was, and because it was, I'm learning, it feels designed for a smaller portable console. This isn't going to be like a Diablo or anything where you have large overarching stories that take huge chunks of time. This is designed to be something where you pop in, you play for 5-10 minutes, and then you pop back out.
So can that make it feel kind of restrictive, or is the town something that you want to return to, like a nice cozy hub?
So I feel like this leans more towards being restrictive. The town is cute, but there isn't a lot going on. In fact, there's actually a menu you can go to called the town map. They call it the town map, but it's really just a list of the things you can do in the town, and there's only like 6. So you can go to the store and buy stuff. You can go to the castle. You can go to the inn and rest and some other things. But the town isn't really like this bustling hub of activity. You can pick up side quests and stuff in town, but none of it really, it doesn't feel like a place that I really want to hang out in. This feels almost more like an arcade-style take on the dungeon crawling genre. I would almost say that it's more Gauntlet than Diablo, if that makes sense.
So I guess if it's not focusing on exploration or any other sort of elements, how strong is the dungeon crawling itself?
So far, I've enjoyed it. I think the combat is fun. So each weapon has what's called JP, and I don't know what the J stands for. I can't remember at this exact moment, but
juicy points. I don't know.
Each weapon has JP, and as you use them, it drains. And you go ahead and you hit. Once your weapon drains, you're completely ineffective with it. So you have to switch. And so you're constantly kept on your toes by having to switch out your weapons for different ones while their meters replenish. And of course, different enemies have different weaknesses. So on some, a bow and arrow will work better. On others, a sword will work better, or daggers. And each one has a unique special attack that you can use. And it's just kind of I found myself enjoying the flow of combat, just using a weapon until I ran out of use for it, switching to another one, and keeping that cycle going. And there is a helpful little indicator on the screen that will tell you to punch the ZR button if you're getting low on points, or even if just the weapon you're using is not very effective against an enemy. There's also clothing that you can get. Like, it's got an armor system, but there's also a fashion system that I haven't quite figured out yet. Which is kind of a mirror for real life. I haven't figured it out here either. But you can choose different cosmetic choices, which give you some kind of bonus. I haven't yet unlocked it, but you can also craft armor. There's I want to say like a surface level crafting system. You can buy crafting books that give you recipes, and then in those you can craft items. You can fortify them. But yeah, there's a lot of fun to be had with the core combat system. I just kind of wish that, given that it's on the Switch and not the 3DS, and given that Level 5 made a really big open world game in Fantasy Life, I was kind of hoping we'd see something, some connective tissue between the quests and the town itself.
I suppose being smaller and more focused might even lend itself better to the multiplayer aspect, though, because you can play locally with others or online with others. I don't know if you've had a chance to test this just yet, but we have a while into the review, so of course we will down the line. Do you feel like it's still fine to play on your own, or does it feel like it's made to be a multiplayer game?
That's a really great question. Like you said, I haven't gotten to play multiplayer yet. I've had the game for a few days, and frankly, I don't know anybody that has it. I know one person hit us up on Twitter, and I'll probably reply to him and try it before the review, which we have an uncharacteristically long time for. So hopefully, we'll be able to take a more complete view of the game. We've had it for just a few days now. But I do feel like it's probably better suited to multiplayer, because even in the early going, I found some quests that were just way too hard. And you can get snacks, and like I mentioned, snacks are people or monsters. So I'm not sure why they're called snacks, but they help you out in battle. Right now, the only snack I have, because the game is kind of early on, is a healer, which is great, but it doesn't help me take anyone down who's really tough. So I feel like being able to get another player in there would help me. The one thing I don't like is that you cannot play story quests in multiplayer. And I'm not sure why that is. That seems like a very 2014 design choice, but basically, when you hit the R button in the game, you get your quest menu, and you choose whether you want to do a story quest or a side quest. And once you've turned on multiplayer, which is pretty simple, you just go into a menu and toggle multiplayer on, and it'll ask you if you want to do local or Wi-Fi. And regardless of which one you choose, your main quest option gets grayed out, and it tells you can't play any main story quests while you have friends coming to visit your town. But once they hop in, it seems, and again, I can't confirm this, but it seems like they just join your world, And I don't know if they come in as their character with all their levels and gear, because like I said, I haven't played it with anybody yet. But it seems to be similar to Fantasy Life, at least in that respect, that it's kind of drop in, drop out multiplayer. Although Fantasy Life did give you the option to play story content. So a little bit different, but some of those side quests are hard. and they even call it out when they give you access to them, that these are going to be difficult and you should probably call a friend. You actually get multiplayer at the same time you get side quests, because they recommend you play them with someone. So I do think that this game would work better with a friend, although I think the implementation could use some work, because I don't understand gating story content.
Yeah, it's kind of off-putting, because maybe this is the kind of game you buy to play with friends, but you can't actually join them until well, I guess you can join them immediately, but you can't get the full benefits until you've really finished the game, which is kind of strange. But I suppose a lot of this game's content is procedurally generated, so it seems like there's going to be a lot of reason to keep coming back to this and replaying it. And playing with friends might be one of those reasons. Thus far, I think you've been making your way through the story. Have you had any sort of incentive to go back to previous sort of missions or anything like that, just to see what else there is to do, or what other loot you can get from those dungeons and whatnot?
Nothing yet. And that's not necessarily something that I'd count as a negative against the game this early on, because really the entire first chapter is a tutorial. And the second one kind of is half and half, and the third one is really the first full-fledged story chapter, where you actually are making progress towards the narrative of the game. But it feels like there will be, because there are lots of side quests that you get, and they specifically mention that each mission has kind of a gamut of different prizes you can get, and those prizes are listed. So if you don't get like the grand prize for that mission, then you may want to go back and do that mission again. And it's different every time, like you said, because these are procedurally generated. So there is some, and it is fun to just run around and whack monsters and fight things. The core mechanics of the game do feel good, even if there are kind of some things I'd change about it all around those mechanics. So I could see this having some legs in terms of replayability. I just really don't understand the decision about single player or story content being single player only. That just kind of, I think that's a major mark against this game, and something that would prevent me from coming back to it, because I could see myself easily, with my leveled up character wanting to hop into my friend's story and help them through on things they're struggling with. The fact that I can't do that is like you said, is pretty off-putting. And
you spent like an obscene amount of time playing Fantasy Life, right? Like we're talking hundreds of hours?
Oh, absolutely. I think I have somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 hours in Fantasy Life. It's one of my, it is my absolute favorite 3DS game. And knowing now that Snack World is on the 3DS, Fantasy Life is still my absolute favorite 3DS game.
It kind of says something, though, that you didn't know this was a 3DS game. It sort of shows how much they've tidied it up. It's not going to blow you away or anything, but it still looks pretty good, and it doesn't... I wouldn't say it looks like it was made for 3DS.
100%. I agree with that. Like I said, I did not know that this existed on 3DS. I did not know it was a port from a 3DS game. It is, in the sense of visuals and graphics, it does not at all feel like a 3DS game. In fact, when I was considering, when I was kind of going over notes in my head about how to talk about this game, one of the things I had written down was, this is exactly the game I would expect if you had your 3DS pitch approved the year the Switch released. Because it definitely feels like somebody designed it for 3DS. Mechanically, it feels like it was built for 3DS, but visually, it feels like they're taking very good advantage of the Switch's additional horsepower. This is almost, and I hate to say this, but this is almost kind of what I expected from a Pokemon game. Like I wanted something that maybe felt like it was designed with a 3DS in mind, but looked like it was built for Switch.
And it's kind of cool to get all these sort of handheld focused games as of late, because we've had Pokemon Sword and Shield, we've got Snack World, we've got Brain Training in Europe and Japan. It feels like just the 3DS era of software is really making its way onto the Switch lately. And it's something I really appreciate. It really feels like a handheld now with this handheld-focused software. And hopefully that continues. But yeah, Snack World, it looks like it's shaping up to be something that I think some people will enjoy. It's probably not the next must-have game, but it still feels a nice niche, and it looks like something that if you have a group of friends, this might be something that you might want all get together and just experience in a group.
Right. I absolutely agree with you, John, on all counts. You know, unfortunately, given the nature of what we do here on Game Explain, I have to play this in docked mode because I need to record it. But it does feel like it lends itself very well to handheld play. You know, I would be very happy to have this on my Switch Lite and just take this with me on the go and break it out when I'm at a friend's house or something like that for some more casual gameplay. But it's I do think that there will be this will find a set of fans here in the West. It's got a very charming art style. It kind of reminds me of a typical Level 5 game kind of crossed with Adventure Time. And I do think that there's stuff to like in this game. I think there's a lot that people will enjoy. Like I said, the combat is really fun. And I'm hopeful that this is, you know, the beginning of a larger trend of more and more quote-unquote 3DS style games coming to the Switch.
Well, it looks super charming, and I'm just happy to see Level 5 making more games and them coming to the Switch. So, Steve, any final thoughts on Snack World?
Stay tuned for the review, because my initial opinions are a bit, I admit, on the negative side. But I am having fun with it, so I'm definitely not set on a score yet. I think that there's a good chance that my opinions could improve the more I play, especially once I try multiplayer. But if this is something you've seen on the 3DS and you're interested, I can almost certainly assure you that this is going to be just as interesting on the Switch, if not more so, because it is quite beautiful visually, especially compared to something that would run on the 3DS typically.
Awesome. And Steve, may I say you are a snack?
Oh.
Anyway, thank you all for watching, and of course be sure to subscribe to Game Explain for a lot more on Snack World and other things gaming too. Until next time, nom nom.